Hey flower folks, welcome to Share Inspirations. In today's video we are going to be talking about fall care of evening primrose along with fertilizing and harvesting seed. Now this plant right here is where the growth is coming out of. These stalks is where the flowers happen. This is normally considered a biennial. However, I seeded this last year and I found that they started flowering this year around June and flowered all the way till end of August. Then I left them to dry up, these seed pods, as you can see, and what ends up happening is it kind of forms this really dry, brittle stem that has all of the flowers that are now turned into seed. If you allow this to rattle around long enough, the seeds are going to scatter everywhere and the plant will then become an invasive species. This is a native wildflower here in the US. You can grow this from zone 3 to zone 9. Of course 10 and 11 is probably a very invasive species, so it's better to not plant it purposefully unless you have found it. I initially grew this to cut the stems to use in cut flowers. What was happening was the flowers would open at the bottom. Now because it's evening primrose, of course it only opened in the evening. What I thought was every day the flowers would continue to open up the stalk, kind of like gladiolus flowers do. But that did not happen. The flowers just wilted the next day. The stalk with the green buds remained green for a few days and then everything wilted afterwards. So that was not a good experiment as far as cutting garden flowers is concerned. So I now leave it for the pollinators, for the bees. The hummingbirds seem to love it. The bees seem to enjoy it very much. It does have a very slight lemony fragrance, which I'm a fan of. If you're around in the twilight time, when the flowers are opening up this stem, certainly is a very pleasant sight. So what I did was I actually cut one to show you guys. This is what the stem would look like. I'm going to go ahead and cut another one of these two and go ahead and harvest seeds out of that. So every fall they're going to go ahead and be brittle, dried up, and you can go ahead and cut the stem like this all the way at the bottom. Of course now my pruner doesn't want to do what it's supposed to be doing. Here we go. These seeds right here, show you an actual intact one. Seems like most of them have opened up pretty good, but not enough to show. Let's see here. Do another one. Same thing. This one I already cut the top part of. This was the top part of it, and the seeds are right here in these tiny little things. They're so tiny, they're very like snapdragon seeds, and they do seem to rattle around in the wind, and I'm sure I do have from both of these stems a ton of seed that has gone all over the place. And once they do start coming up, I have an option to either pluck them or go ahead and just leave them as is and either eat them, the roots. As I was talking earlier, this is what the plant looks like the rest of the year. Kind of like a ground cover, but it isn't really a ground cover. Now, as far as fertilizing, it does not need to be fertilized on a regular basis because it's a native, almost kind of like a dandelion. However, I give it a feed of tea and coffee waste, which I save in my tub like this. This is how I feed all of my perennials and annuals year round. I don't purchase any fancy items to feed the plants, and what I do is just go ahead and put some right by the roots, and it kind of works like a slow release fertilizer. I have not seen this plant grow from root suckers. There is a variety that does grow from root suckers. I believe that's a pink one. However, this one does not do root suckers. It only grows from seed. As far as the perennial aspect, I've had this for the last 3 years. The same plant goes ahead and produces a tall stalk and then flowers and flowers, and then once it dries up like a brittle like this, I go ahead and cut it down and it looks evergreen. If you are in cooler areas, say like zone 5 and below, you would probably notice that it is dying down to the ground and not staying evergreen. I am in the high desert, Southern California, zone 8B. That's why it remains evergreen for me. And like I said earlier, this is an edible plant. Something else to note here is an interesting factor. Native Americans used to use this plant to treat hemorrhoids. And what they would do is boil the leaves and the stalks and the root and make ointments to put on the hemorrhoids, as well as use the water for the wash, and that seemed to have helped. I thought that that was a very interesting way of sharing the plant's medicinal qualities. So that was that, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you in the next one. Bye.